On March 15th, despite a court order, Homeland Security sent 238 Venezuelan migrants that were accused of being members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua under the Alien Enemies Act from the U.S. to El Salvador's CECOT prison, a prison that has been described as a tropical gulag that has been condemned as inhumane and brutal by human rights organizations. According to internal data and investigative reports, approximately 75% of them have no apparent criminal convictions. 60 of them were asylum seekers. Many of them were deported based on their tattoos and social media posts. In late March, 8 more migrants were sent to CECOT under the Alien Enemies Act, claiming that all 8 were members of Tren de Aragua or the El Salvador gang MS-13. The most well-known one is Kilmar Abrego Garcia. On July 19th, in a prisoner exchange with the U.S., the 238 were released back to Venezuela. They are now speaking out on the inhumane conditions and torture that they endured in the 4 months that they were there. The following are firsthand accounts and Americans' reactions to the conditions in the CECOT prison. All credit goes to the content creators.
The United States is operating a concentration camp, and I want to be really clear with my language here because I think it matters a lot, particularly in life and death situations. There's this article from Talking Points memo yesterday that actually took my breath away, and I want to talk about some of the terms that we're using to describe the government's current actions. So CECOT in Spanish, the Centro de Confinamiento de Terrorismo, the one in El Salvador, is often called a prison or a supermax prison by the Trump administration. But as this TPM article notes, a prison is usually legally defined as an institution under state control for confinement of persons serving sentences for serious crimes, which implies that people have been sentenced. Right now, the U.S. is literally snatching people off the streets and sending them to CECOT without a trial or without being sentenced to anything, which is in violation of their due process rights that all humans are entitled to according to the Constitution. So CECOT is not a prison. In the TPM article, various experts are quoted as calling it a concentration camp, a penal colony, or a permanent prison camp. Note also that the Salvadoran president, Nayib Bukele, has said that people sent to CECOT have no chance of getting out. Even knowing all of that, you might think it's extreme to refer to CECOT as a concentration camp, since that phrase invokes images of places like Auschwitz and other Nazi death camps during World War II. But the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum says that the term concentration camp refers to a camp in which people are detained or confined, usually under harsh conditions and without regard to legal norms of arrest and imprisonment that are acceptable in a constitutional democracy, which allegedly we have. So take a look at this image and tell me that these people are not under harsh conditions without regard to legal norms of arrest and imprisonment. What has happened to Kilmar Abrego Garcia and the others that have been kidnapped and sent to this camp is an atrocity that you should be outraged about. But you should also be terrified because Trump keeps doubling down on the fact that he wants to find a way to send U.S. citizens there as well. And of course he says that it would only be terrorists or the most violent criminals, but if the government will not abide by the rules of due process or court orders, anyone can be labeled a terrorist, including you, including me. So call CECOT what it is. It's a concentration camp. Extraordinary times call for extraordinary strong language.
In Trump's not-so-secret gulag in El Salvador, the point is to create a permanent solution to crime. No rehabilitation, no return to society. Each cell houses about 100 men, and they're in total lockdown all day long. Prisoners are in the cell 23.5 hours a day. That other 0.5, that 30 minutes, they get to do some exercise in the corridor, but they never see outside. The lights are on 24 hours a day. There's no outdoor time. There's no windows. There's no ability to see the sun. There's no clocks. There's no markers of time at all. They have no jobs, no classes, no books, no programming whatsoever. They sleep on metal, no mattresses, no pillows. No visits from family or lawyers, no letters, no calls. Meals are minimal, mostly rice and beans, no utensils, so they've got to eat this with their hands. No meat ever. Water is limited. Bathing and laundry are done via a bucket, which is shared by like 100 guys. No prisoner ever leaves the facility for medical needs. Most of the inmates have never been... What? No, that can't be right. Most of the inmates have never been formally charged or sentenced. Most of the inmates have never been formally charged or sentenced. So they're just there awaiting trial forever. No one has actually adjudicated if they are actually criminals. Somebody just decided you belong in CECOT, but do we actually know for certain that these people are criminals? I understand that the tattoo eye test is enough for most people, or some people, or Trump people, but it's not enough in the real world. The prison also has no overcrowding problem. New prisoners come in all the time, but they have no overcrowding problem. How's that? How could there be no overcrowding problem if you have a finite amount of prisoners and new people? Some of them drop dead because of malnutrition, but I think some of them are helped along to their end.
Come to Caracas in Venezuela because this country has seen some emotional moments in the last few days as more than 200 Venezuelan migrants were released from the notorious Salvadorian maximum security prison CECOT. The 252 migrants who were deported by the Trump administration to El Salvador in March were returned to their home country on Friday in exchange for the release of 10 US nationals and permanent residents who were detained in Venezuela, but also with the release of dozens of Venezuelan political prisoners, according to the US officials.
Llegamos que nos pelaron a coco literalmente. Y cuando estábamos todos sentados en el suelo que nos dijeron, bienvenidos al infierno, donde pasarás y serás condenado el resto de tus días, donde yo me encargaré de no comer, de que no como más nunca ni carne ni pollo. Eso nos afectó tanto psicológicamente que algunos de los muchachos pensaron hasta en suicidarse, hasta yo también.
Venezuela has previously accused El Salvador of kidnapping men like Reyes, after the country signed an agreement with the United States to take deported migrants into custody. El Salvador claimed the detainees had ties to the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, though immigration attorneys, advocates and family members have pushed back on that, claiming in many cases that the detainees had no criminal records. The Venezuelan Attorney General said on Monday that he was opening an investigation into 3 Salvadoran officials, including the president, Nayib Bukele, for this alleged abuse. The Bukele administration, meanwhile, has said that it respects the human rights of those in custody, and I quote, without distinction of nationality, and that its prison system meets safety standards.
From hell. This is how Arturo Suarez describes the past 4 months. Imprisoned at the behest of Donald Trump, now released into the arms of his family.
Arturo, it's really great to see you out of prison.
Just days after being exchanged in a prisoner swap with Americans detained in Venezuela, Arturo is telling me his story. How he ended up shaven and shackled in one of the world's worst prisons, despite never having a criminal record.
Al entrar la administración de Trump,
I had a feeling when the Trump administration came in, there would be deportations, but I never thought I would be caught up in all of this.
Arturo is an aspiring singer. He'd moved to the US to escape Venezuela's authoritarian regime, but he was swept up in Trump's deportation policy. Accused with little evidence of being a gang member, he was arrested by masked and armed immigration agents, then flown to El Salvador, a country he'd never even visited. Brought to this maximum security prison, his ordeal was underway.
sí, constantemente fuimos golpeados, sufrimos maltrato físico.
We were constantly beaten. We suffered physical, verbal, and psychological abuse. There wasn't a day where the wardens didn't tell us that the only way we'll leave that place was if we were dead. In fact, the first words that the head of the prison said to us after the first beating was, "Welcome to hell."
The Trump administration paid El Salvador millions of dollars to imprison more than 250 Venezuelan men here.
Do not come to our country illegally.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem visited for a photo shoot.
Obviously, they did a show of this. They had cameras. When she came in, my cellmates and I began to make the help sign, which she disliked a lot. We began to shout freedom.
So you believe that Arturo is on this picture?
I spoke to Arturo's brother Nelson back in April as he appealed for his release. He said Arturo's only crime was having tattoos, which the White House cited as evidence of involvement with gangs. Now Arturo shows me them. Most, he says, are in tribute to his late mother.
Do you think the Trump administration truly believed that you were a gang member, or do you think they just wanted as many Venezuelan people as possible out of the country?
I think it was just an excuse to get us out. We weren't taken for having tattoos or belonging to a criminal gang. We were taken for being Venezuelans. And today, I want to tell the world that being Venezuelan is not a crime.
Arturo had hoped to be reunited in the United States with his wife, Natalie, and their baby, who are currently in Chile. He's now being supported by some family members, but he'll never return to the US. He went there for a better life, but instead was labelled a criminal. Now he says he just wants to clear his name. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Los Angeles.
125 days in a torture prison.
A gay makeup artist who was deported from San Diego to a notorious prison in El Salvador is back home with his family in Venezuela. Andrew Romero was freed in a prisoner swap. As Team 10 reporter back in April found out, attorneys say he was wrongfully deported with more than 200 other Venezuelan men after being mistaken as a gang member. The deportation sparked nationwide backlash and even a Supreme Court ruling. Team 10 investigator Austin Grabish has discovered 2 other men from Imperial County were also deported to the prison in El Salvador. And tonight, he follows through with their attorney.
After 125 days, Andre Romero is finally free. The makeup artist cried as he was reunited with his parents.
Well, we're happy that he's no longer in the torture prison. We are worried for his future.
Melissa Shepard, an attorney with the Immigrant Defenders Law Center, says Romero got a big welcome from supporters in his hometown in Venezuela Wednesday.
His entire town was waiting for him, preparing a meal.
In March, the Trump administration deported Romero and more than 200 other Venezuelan men to this notorious mega prison in El Salvador. The government claimed they were all part of the brutal Tren de Aragua gang, something attorneys and relatives for many of the men, including Romero, continue to deny. Romero entered the San Diego border legally last summer and requested asylum, claiming his life was in danger as a gay man and an opponent of the Venezuelan government. He passed an initial interview, but then CBP sent him here to this detention center after believing tattoos on his body proved he was a gang member.
He had no criminal record in the United States or in any other country. He did not even enter the country illegally.
On Capitol Hill, lawmakers demanded to know what evidence, if any, the government had beyond Romero's tattoos.
So it's not just on tattoos. It's who they're affiliated with, their communication.
On Friday, after months of backlash, Romero and the other men were put on a plane after being released in a prisoner swap between the U.S., Venezuela, and El Salvador. Venezuelan's president claims the men were beaten, sexually abused, and served rotten food. He's now demanding accountability, even though he's faced accusations of targeting political opponents. Back in California, Shepard says her client's rights were violated.
They were physically and verbally and psychologically tortured.
The nonprofit is representing a total of 8 men sent to that mega prison, including 2 workers who were deported from Imperial County.
We had 2 clients who were cousins who were working at a warehouse kind of in that Imperial region and were the victims of an ICE raid.
Shepard says all of the deported men are relieved to finally be free, but are unsure of what their future holds. Austin Grabish, ABC 10 News.
Learning what Andre Hernandez, that innocent man that we as Americans sent to CECOT, went through, and how he was SA'd by the guards and beaten, and we did that. We put him there to go through that horrific trauma. And we're just now hearing those stories, right? We're just now starting to hear the depths of depravity of what happened there. I want you to remember, as you read that story, as you think about that story and reflect on it, think about the thousands of stories we're not reading. Think about all of the women and kids. Think about all of the people that are in these detention centers across the United States that our tax dollars are funding. And think about what's happening to them and how much assault is happening every fucking day.
Court documents now reveal Kilmore Albrego Garcia was tortured in El Salvador prison. Imagine kneeling all night, beaten if you fall, no sleep, no food, no mercy. Lost 31 pounds in 2 weeks. Get pissed off. This is Kilmore Albrego Garcia. Deported from the U.S. to El Salvador's CECOT prison this March. Court filings reveal that he was forced to kneel between the hours of 9 a.m. to 6 a.m. for days on end. Beaten if he collapsed and denied bathroom access. One night, he soiled himself alone and helpless. He spent weeks in a cell with bright lights 24/7. Windows on bare metal bunks. Sleep denied, dignity stripped. He lost 31 pounds. Despite no gang ties, officials confirmed his tattoos were neutral. He was threatened with placement among violent inmates. This wasn't an accident. This is a system designed to break people, physically and mentally. Photos later showed better conditions, but they were staged, not reality. Then on June 6th, he was flown back to the U.S. Not rescued, but to face smuggling charges. Literally tied to an old traffic stop after enduring torture in a prison meant for terrorists. This wasn't part of his punishment. This was torture by design. He survived horrors designed to break him. Now he's back in custody. Share this. Tag your reps. If this can happen to him, it can happen to anyone.
La experiencia para mí ahí, o sea, fue algo difícil, ¿sabes? Fue algo horrible, se puede decir. Que sí, en verdad, como ellos decían, que llegamos al infierno. En esos momentos fue algo que el infierno esa experiencia yo no se la recomiendo a nadie, ¿saben? Ni se lo desearía a nadie por un enemigo, ni nadie, a la persona, a nadie. No se la recomiendo ni le deseo el mal a nadie que llegue a ese lugar.
Yo diría todo. Desde que nosotros tocamos esa cárcel, todo fue terrible, horrible. El recibimiento, cuando estábamos ya adentro, los golpes, las marcas que tenemos en nuestro cuerpo, lo que nos hacían pasar, la comida que nos daban, parecíamos como gente, comíamos como marca. Nosotros especulábamos que íbamos para Venezuela, porque según era lo que se escuchaba.
Bueno, desde el día 1 eso fue terrible, porque aparte de que nosotros nos llevaron engañados, Fue golpe, maltrato, tanto físico como psicológico. La incertidumbre de no saber por qué estábamos allá, de por qué nos habían llevado a ese país, por qué nos habían llevado a una cárcel terrorista, pues es sumamente difícil. Bueno, te cuento desde que aterrizamos en El Salvador, que nosotros, Salvador, por lo menos en el vuelo donde yo iba un salvadoreño. Nosotros decíamos, no, seguro lo vienen a dejar a él y a nosotros nos van a llevar a nuestro país. Cuando no fue así, bajan el salvadoreño y luego sube un oficial de las autoridades salvadoreñas y nos dice, ustedes también se quedan acá. Y nosotros, no, ¿cómo así? Aquí nosotros no nos vamos a quedar, nosotros no somos El Salvador. Primera vez que venimos a este país. Y el oficial nos dice, ustedes se van a quedar aquí por las buenas o por las malas se van a bajar. Que nos suben en los buses, nos llevan a cortarnos el cabello, a lo que llegamos al centro nos llevan a cortarnos el cabello. Ahí ya, como quien dice, ya nos bajaron la moral del todo, al hacernos igual quitar la ropa delante de muchas personas para cambiarnos. Luego nos pasan un escáner, nos vuelven a subir a los buses. Todo eso, como quien dice, todo ese trayecto era golpe y golpe, maltrato tras maltrato, tanto físico como psicológico.
Bueno, lo más difícil para mí ahí fue la comunicación. La comunicación que, o sea, mis familiares no sabían nada de mí. Yo no sabía nada de mi mamá, de mis abuelas, de mi hermano. No sabía nada, no sabía qué era en sí la de realidad que estaba pasando, por qué estábamos ahí. No sabíamos nada. O sea, a mí nunca me dijeron que yo era, o sea, a mí me vincularon con una pandilla, pero nunca me mostraron un delito, ¿sabes? Un delito que comprobara que yo era un criminal, era esto, nunca. Y en sí, como te digo, nunca pensé que yo iba a llegar allá, a una cárcel de terroristas. Y sí, no, nosotros siempre, desde un principio que llegamos ahí, nos pegaban, maltrato, psicológicamente nos decían que ya su mundo se les acabó, que aquí no iban a salir, que de aquí no lo saca nadie, ni el Papa, que ni Nicolás Maduro, nadie.
No sabía qué pensar, pero sí decía, Diosito, ayúdame y permíteme nuevamente ver a mi hija, a mi esposa, a mi hermano, porque al principio estábamos derrotados, golpeados, no teníamos fuerza, porque ellos se encargaron de darnos esa paliza, agotarnos, y nos hacíamos las preguntas, por ejemplo yo, que por qué a mí, que por qué me pasó esto a mí, tantas cosas que Dios y yo sabemos que me han pasado, que mi vida a mis 29 años no ha sido fácil. Y podría buscar un mejor futuro para mí, mi hija, mi esposa, mi mamá. Siempre, o sea, hemos querido lo mejor para nosotros. Ahora que yo tengo a mi niña, lo mejor para ella, mejor educación. O sea, fui a Estados Unidos a buscar una mejor vida.
Many human rights groups and journalists had documented CECOT's conditions since its 2023 opening, and news of systemic beatings, severe overcrowding, and denial of counsel circulated widely in Washington. It is difficult to prove whether the Orange Man saw these detailed reports on the brutal conditions before ordering the March 15th, 2025 deportations. However, he met President Bukele at the White House on April 14th, 2025, and publicly praised the facility, suggesting at least some awareness of the CECOT's reputation and operations. Senior U.S. agencies like DHS, ICE, the National Security Council and State Department would have coordinated the use of the Alien Enemies Act in asylum case reviews. Internal briefings on detention conditions are standard before outsourcing incarceration to a foreign partner. So it's highly likely his national security and immigration advisors flagged the risks of arbitrary detention, lack of due process, and repeated torture. Anybody that participated in these deportations needs to be held accountable and reminded of the fact that I was just following orders is not a defense.